Thank you, Filipa. Let's hope that now my screens go into the big one. So yeah, that is me. So my title will be Get Your Screen Together and Design Skills for Front-End People. I'm not really sure how many of you are really working in front-end. Can I see some hands up in the air just to get a notion of the room? Okay, that's a lot. Web designers? Come on. Oh, okay. I am like you. Okay, so first things first, this is me. I'll be sharing my slides probably in the end of this day on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect, to send emails, comments, notes, ideas for crazy connections between design and front-end, okay? And my first and essential question about how to get those skills into front-end people is, okay, why would you learn about design? I mean, you got your thing, you do your thing. Why should you be learning design skills? Well, the fact is maybe you shouldn't. Well, on the other hand, you will always find this kind of moments, okay? So you don't want to create new screens. I mean, you think you suck at doing that, okay? Or you need a freaking designer, is not around at all. Or, okay, so this guy gives me this and this is impossible to implement. What should I do? Okay, so you've all been there probably, right? Okay, but my first, I had that question, why should you learn about design? And what I do believe the answer to that question is everyone should be with a design mindset in an organization that builds software, okay? Not just designers. And this is basically why. First of all, you get those non-realistic, crazy screens that will have lousy performance, okay? And you know that as soon as you get them from the design team, okay? So you need to raise the flag somehow. My favorite, the winging it moments. So you know you'll be doing design too. I mean, there's no way the designer could think of every freaking interaction in your screens. So you will have to fill in the gaps, right? Yeah. Okay, the near enough complex is related more with business people. Those guys that go right next to you to your desk and say, oh, that's good enough, that's good to ship. No, you don't need to do anything more. That's good. Okay, yeah? Okay, just send it my way. Yeah. That hurts us a lot as designers, okay? There's people laughing because they feel the pain. Yeah, it's real. And one that, the last one here on the slide, is really the toughest one to fight, is companies, probably they've been around for a while, and they have a totally back-end mindset, which means, oh, we only care about the feature. Is it working? Then it's good. It doesn't need to look good. Forget about the designs that you got. Forget about making it pixel perfect. I don't care. It works. Users will continue to use it because it works. That's not really the reality, okay? So you will get this mindset a lot, and this is really hard to fight, but the thing is we need to find all the arguments we can get to find this mindset, okay? So, yeah. Every time you find one of these four situations, you are forced to make design decisions. Not being a designer, but making design decisions, even if they're small, okay? So, a little bit more about those design decisions. So you're basically in the end of the line, right? So you didn't have to deal with this. There was a guy having to deal with this. And this is very hard to deal with, believe me. Okay. And what really lies beneath your part, I would say, and I've divided this on purpose, there's a phase of user experience and then followed by a phase of user interface. Are you all familiar with, I believe you are all familiar with both phases, but let's take a look at how it goes. So, this is design, this is what you get, and this ugly thing that I'm showing you, it's the same thing, and it's also design. So, design is not just this, it's this. And I'm very sorry for my team and the people that work with me, because these mock-ups are really ugly, and what I did to prepare this session was to make them even uglier, okay? That's cool. So, but the idea is that you go through different phases and they're all design. And the assumption that the pretty thing that you get to implement is the only thing that matters, it's a big, big mistake. What you should be doing is this. So design decisions are going through this loop and are going back and forth until they are not perfect, but getting there. Okay, so first thing first, let's go with the user experience part, which is pretty much my favorite. Okay, so to deal with that empty screen, first thing you do is to forget about it. And just don't think that design happens when you're sitting at the desk, because it won't, okay? The first thing you do is go and meet those boring people from the business that will basically tell you how the things work and what do they want for a new application or redesigning an application, whatever the scenario is. They will tell you what they really need to know, what they really need to happen with this application that you're building. That is phase one. So business analysis pretty much starts it all. It can be, it can start with a kickoff meeting followed by sessions where they walk you through the existing processes. Let's take a look at how it can go. But the idea with business analysis is that you get the business goals very, very clear, okay? Not just that, try to understand what the business is about. And this is also very important because we probably should be getting all the people that matter in a room, okay? Not just have a meeting with the CIO or the business sponsor or the guy that is available that day. Just put everyone who's going to decide and approve your work inside that room, okay? Also, you're creating from scratch, but not really. So you have that empty screen, but the empty screen will translate something real, something tangible, something that happens nowadays. It's maybe a work process or making toasts or whatever, but something happens nowadays that needs to be digital or needs to be modernized digitally, okay? So you need to understand if there's a current application, who uses it, or who is refusing to use it, that also happens, and try to get some analytics of that, so real data to go with it. That's not always easy, but you should try to get it. Not just that, imagine that there's no application. This is something new. They want to implement a new process and they really don't have anything. But the thing is, you'll always get a way to understand better the thing that they will build. It might not be with walking through an application, but it can be showing you Excel spreadsheets or sheets of paper. The question is, how do they do the thing nowadays, right? And from that, you'll understand the kinds of people that will be using the application. So you should be, by now, already thinking about roles and personas and trying to see this kind of person does things like this kind of person does things like that. I'll be having different roles, different, maybe an admin will be needed, something like that. This is where you start figuring out those things. And this first part with the business is basically where you prepare the other part, the other fun part. And this is for a UXer, basically, where all gods get happy, okay? So again, design doesn't happen at the desk, so you went out and met the business first, but now you're going to meet the users, okay? There's no real design without knowing your users, and that is very clear. So, very important thing. You don't ask users to come to the kickoff meeting. No. Why is that? Well, because they're really not showing you what they do, they're just saying what they do. And people are pretty much unreliable witnesses, which means what they say is not the same thing that they do, right? We're not good at telling the things that we do. So you just go there and see, observe. Instead of hearing, you just observe. And from using an application, you can see the user, for instance, switching tabs a lot, writing down things on paper, or getting tired after a few hours of work. There's a lot of things that you understand from the context of the user that you're not getting if you were seated with you in a meeting room, okay? So yeah, after meeting with these users, performing interviews, or formally or informally just watching them, it's important that you go back to the user and share a bit of what you found with this observation, okay? So imagine that you have seen some nasty habits from the user, and one of the business goals is to really cut down with that habit, okay? So there's really a balance that you need to make between business goals and user needs here, okay? One funny thing is that the business will try to block you from talking to the users. Yes, they will. They will say, users are stupid, they don't know what I'm doing, or this is confidential, I just don't want them to see. It will happen. But the thing is, and this is what will guide all the user experience part, you will say something like this. Okay, if you want me not to talk to the users, I can go home, sit on my desk, build you a proposal. It will be a blind shot, okay? I will not know what works and what not works. And design is about what works, not about getting beautiful ideas from Google searches or dribble shots into a screen. That is very important. Okay, so business goals, you've talked to the business. User needs, you've talked to the users, or you've observed the users. And now the freaking blank screen. Now let's do something, okay? And you start in low fidelity. Low fidelity means you're not very close to the real thing, to the end thing. So you're starting sketchy, black and white, shades of gray, that kind of thing. The idea is that you start by sketching functionality, so function before form, okay? And laying down how does this screen relate to the other screen and putting things on a flow. Focus basically on main user stories, okay? So focus on what's important first. And this is your first shot. It's still blind, okay? This is still you sitting at the desk. Of course, you do have some information from user research. You do have some information from business analysis. But this is still you sitting at the desk and making a decision about navigation, a decision about header and body and whatever, okay? This is still you. And you're going to make decisions about information architecture from what you've learned. So you're going to decide if this is a hamburger menu or if you're going to do some crazy menu-less application. I did one once, application without a menu. That was cool. Okay. But the thing is, this is still you, okay? And you keep sketching, and the first thing you do is probably go back to the business and show them your sketches and say, hey, I did this. Are all the business concepts okay? Is this something you do? Is this something that can work? And the business will say, oh, no, you got that wrong. That phase doesn't belong here. That word we don't use, or we should unify terminology, whatever. You will get feedback. From that feedback, you will iterate. But the most important iteration is not really just with business, and we'll take a look at that. Okay. Now I'm going to make a break on this process that I'm explaining, and I'm going to talk a bit about heuristics. Does anyone in the room have ever heard about heuristics? Jacob Nielsen's heuristics? Okay. So a set of good practices from the user experience, one of the user experience gurus, who is Jacob Nielsen, from the Nielsen-Norman group that I invite you to investigate. They have very cool articles on how to use this or the other pattern, okay? And this guy is really put down all big chunks of things that we should keep in mind when in this moment of designing from blank, okay? Things that we should be careful with. And I'm going to go through this very fast. This is just for you to be aware that it exists. Please search for it. It's very interesting, the examples that he gives. Okay, so first thing to build your screen is always tell the user what's going on. Users don't like to be left out in a dark room without knowing what's going on, okay? So visibility of system status is #1 heuristic for Jacob Nielsen and for all of us also. 2, get examples from the real world. Try to find a match. If you're doing folders in your application, make them look like folders, for instance, okay? Very interesting. User control and freedom. So, yes, users need cancel buttons. Users are going to make mistakes and would like to recover. Users don't want to only have to resort to the top back button if this is a web browser, or to the back button in the phone if this is, for instance, an Android phone, okay? The application should give those alternatives to people of regretting something they have done. Okay. Consistency and standards. This means that if, okay, this example is basically if you have an hamburger always on the same side, and it means menu, don't try to reinvent the wheel and put some other crazy icon representing the menu. Okay. Just go with what people are used to. That will help them, and that will make them not think, which is cool. Error prevention. So, okay, so everyone makes mistakes. That one is clear. And you need to give them a way to recover fast from those mistakes. So those cancel buttons, whatever, they'll help you pretty much. On destructive actions, such as deleting something, you should get a confirmation. Yeah, those boring confirmation models, use them when you're dealing with destructive actions, okay? Recognition rather than recall, the I don't want to think part. And that's very interesting. Like, okay, so tell me where I am. I'm in step whatever. I don't want to think that I've already filled in this and that and I should be heading there. You need to show me that. Make it clear. Good. Flexibility and efficiency of use. So make it clear how to interact with the system. That's basically it. Okay? Don't show too much at first hand. Have clear notions to load more context, and to have all information on screen if needed. Okay? This is pretty clear. Okay? Aesthetic and minimalistic design. As a UXer, you are already thinking a bit about this, how to simplify things. Of course, this example of a global search versus a broken in steps search can do a lot of controversy, because you can go to the database people and say, oh, I'll retrieve data from here and from there and from the other side, so I cannot have a global search. This will take forever and performance issues and whatever. And you need to have those conversations too, okay? Okay, heuristics are almost finished. Don't worry, okay? Help users recognize and recover from errors. Errors will happen, that thing that I've already told you, but give them undo actions, back actions, whatever, ways to go back and regret the things that we've done. And finally, help and documentation. Don't go with help pages. Nobody reads help pages unless they're in total despair, okay? Give users the help they need in the place they need, in the moment that they need, okay? Contextual help, always prefer that. And these are the basic 10 rules, you can explore them later, that really guide that blank screen moment, okay? So let's go back to our blank screen. Our blank screen is not blank anymore, right? We did some sketchy things. We have shown those sketchy things to the guys in the business, right? They have said, oh, change this and change that. And what we're really going to do now is the favorite part of every UXer after user research, which is user testing. So this is where our blind shot stops, ceases to be a blind shot. We're going to take what we did, which are screens in a flow that tell a story, put them in front of users. Okay, we can use InVision, for instance, for that, and pretend that the sketchy drawing of a button is really a button, and the user can really interact with that and pretend that it's almost an application. And the thing here is so powerful that you're giving them tasks for them to complete in your low-fidelity mock-ups, and you're really watching if it works or not. So no longer a hint, because if it doesn't work, it just goes straight to garbage. Okay? We are not delivering things that we haven't tested and validated with users. Things that don't work are not really design, are some ethereal exercise. Okay, just one note about this. There's a very known statistic about testing with 5 users will find you like 80% of the problems, of the usability problems in your application. So aim for 5. Of course, that there will be application scenarios in which you know nothing about the business, in which you're really in the blind, and you will need more than 5 users, or you're not getting the patterns that you need, and you will need more than 5 users. I had a funny experience with an application for people with a certain disease. And the fact is, the spectrum of the disease was so different, people were behaving in such different ways that I could not find patterns with 5 users, not with 10. We had to do a lot of usability testing for that application, okay? That is also very interesting to see. So But most scenarios, 5 users will do. Okay, this is what you do. So you prepare the thing in a flow to be tested. It doesn't have to be pretty. Of course, you should warn your users that this is just a future application, just sketches for now, okay, don't worry. And the fact is, okay, imagine that you have really no access to users, the business has blocked that alternative, you're not getting users, okay, just get up from your desk and go test in the hallway with someone from your company. Just don't think of not doing it, okay? And this is pretty much what happens in the user experience phase, okay? So you build something out of business goals, user needs, and validate that. And you get those ugly mock-ups. And then you move on to the next phase. It can or cannot be performed by the same guy, okay? It could be someone else in the team. But you go to the part where this will be the final deliverable. Again, design is form and function. We're going to the form phase. Okay, let's transform the low fidelity into high fidelity, which means we're already doing visual design, what is closer to reality, okay? That is why it's called high fidelity. And some basic rules, so we made a stop there to talk about heuristics for the user interface phase. Now we're going to talk about some basic rules for user interface as well. And these are called the CRAP rules, okay? CRAP, an acronym, it starts with a C for contrast, okay? Yesterday night we were testing here our presentations up here on the screen, and mine was terrible in terms of contrast, so I spent a bit of my night doing more contrast to this presentation. Yeah, that's real life. So I failed in my own rules. R stands for repetition, okay? So build your screen in a way that repeatable items are close together and clearly match them in groups. A is for alignment. So this phase is all about alignment too. We don't worry about that in the previous one. And to finish with the CRAP, proximity, which means that things that make sense together should be together. As simple as that. Okay. Another break in the story to talk about typography, and as I'll be sharing this, I'm not going through a lot of details, but the idea here is that if you're, okay, you can be the designer, or you can be the front-end person that receives the designer's work. Respect typography is basically the message here, okay? So, and use it wisely. You don't need all the weights of a certain font, just don't make use of them. When dealing with numbers, try to avoid ups and downs. If you're dealing with a lot of numbers, it will not become readable, okay? One great notion is legibility. How do we understand the typeface in the screen? And the other key notion on typography is readability, which is my ability to go distinguish those typefaces and make it into meaning, which means understanding a text. And things like this can really destroy the experience. Okay, performance is always a thing, so just beware with some styled fonts, okay, that can be damaging your performance on screen. And basically, we go back to our process now. So we do have the rules, those CRAP rules. We do have the low fidelity mockups. We need the brand, right? So let's get the elements of the brand and incorporate them, following the CRAP rules. So I'm sure there's pictures, there's a logo, there's fonts to be used, there's a bunch of things that are probably already documented by the team. Sometimes we have to build them from scratch, but common scenarios that we already have them, okay? So let's get our screen into that brand universe and make something meaningful. Not just that, and we'll have today an interesting conversation about design systems. You should prepare future work, which means if you're building something for a certain company that will build more than one application or that will iterate on that application, redesign it, whatever, just try to make it reusable, try to gather it in a design system for others that will come reuse what you've done, okay? So yeah, get your screen together. What I really mean with this talk is that design decisions are pretty much made throughout the whole cycle. They can be of different nature. They can be focused on function, then on form, and then on winging it in the development phase, but you will always have to make them, even if you're not a designer, okay? So all along the watchtower, all along the cycle, you are going to make those decisions. And you need to fight back all the situations that we've found, okay? Again, maybe the first one is very easy to understand, and from your experience as front-end people, you will understand, for instance, when you receive something that will have lousy performance. Second is just going to be your daily basis. The designer will not be there for the whole thing. Number three, you just say bad things to the people that, that try to just ship it when you're not ready. And the last one, that's the real deal. That's what I'm fighting for every day. It's okay, I'm not going, I have a bunch of screens which are basically goodies, okay? So when I'm sharing my presentation, you'll have interesting things on creating interesting links on where to get a color palette, or here define fonts and colors, get inspiration from others, because the blank screen doesn't happen only from our head and from users and business, but we should see what others did before us. And just a lot of stuff to help you with this. Just a little note, the last one. At OutSystems, we are using Sketch, Craft, and then InVision to inspect the code, but you will find your own tools to make it work for you. In a final note, the whole cycle that brings us together, so user experience, user interface, and development here with the front-end development, is not just really about finding the tools that connect the dots, but really finding where do we raise the flag and call the other guy, okay? So a bit about communication between teams and being closer together. And that is the biggest fight of all, I think. So yeah, this was it. A bit out of time, but okay. Here are my email and my LinkedIn accounts, so you can connect. But now there's Q&A, right? So feel free to get to know more.
Such a good start.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there's one here. You'll need the microphone.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting. I have a question. So near the end of your presentation, you talked about communication. For you, how important is it to have cross-functional teams, for example?
Okay,
do you think you work better, for example, in isolation when you are thinking about the user experience and overall the mock-ups and the design, or you think it's better to think integrated in a team?
Okay, that's an amazing question. And that is an ongoing conversation in my company and in many others right now, okay? Should you put designers next to designers and just build groups that are good at what they do, or should you just put them together and make them work as a cross-functional team? I do think two things, and this is controversial too. I do think that designers should be closer to designers, so they should just go home, have a place where to sit with other designers. And this comes from a bit of my personal experience. I have worked in that cross-functional environment, and then for a physical circumstance that was we were all changing to another building. Someone decided that in the new building, all the designers would be in one floor, which meant I was far from my project team, but I was closer to other designers. And the amazing thing was that I could just raise my hand and make a question and have a discussion right there. But on the other hand, I was never in my place. I was always going down to be next to my project team. So what I do think is, based on the nature of our projects, we are going to make that decision. I don't think you should isolate the profiles from being away from the people like them, because they will feel like they're stagnant in a way, and they won't have such productive conversations. On the other hand, you need to be closer for specific projects that require constant getting to deals or talking about the possibilities and that kind of thing. What I do think that designers and front-end people should be close together, okay? One of my concerns, and of many people in the industry, is that the designers that have the luck of creating things from scratch, like me and my team, we create applications out of nothing, which is amazing. We're always in that ideation phase, like very creative, very cool. But the thing is, we have our baby, and then it goes away. We don't know what happens to the baby. And that has to stop in a way, okay? So we need to be closer to development. Not just the first line, the front-end development, because we don't just worry about form. We do want to test. And when the product goes to quality assurance, it should go back to designers as well, right? So we need to make that freaking thing of the cycle really work. And I do think we need to have some kind of a balance. I know the trend now is to kind of make small groups like they were little startups inside a big company, and have like task forces or SWAT teams, and they're there for the project, and they're all different and having amazing conversations. But the real, how you grow as a front-end person or as a designer is also when you go home and meet others like you and discuss, I've done this in the project. So there needs to be place for both things. How do we do it? I don't know. I still haven't found a way. That was a long answer to your question. Any more questions? Where? No? Ah.
So regarding user testing, do you conduct it yourself, or would you be okay with outsourcing that task and reading a report on it?
You mean hiring a company to do user testing?
Yes, and reading a report. Which one do you do and which one do you prefer?
Okay. What we do in OutSystems is we do it ourselves. Okay, so we do have a process for preparing the usability testing sessions, for conducting, and then for reporting results. But there's no way that it cannot work with other scenarios too. You could be hiring companies that, for instance, do remote testing, and that can work for a business-to-consumer application, that can work. But the fact is, we get a lot of different applications at OutSystems, not just business-to-consumer, but business-to-employee and business-to-enterprise, which means that the companies that hire us to help them have the users in the building. So why should I hire an external company to do that work for me? I will do it myself and get feedback firsthand. So I do prefer that. But for business to consumer and for long term, I can consider to just switch between the two models. But I will always want to go to those usability testing sessions. That is the funniest part of the job. Cool? Oh, one more here.
So during those testings, do you have like a live call with the user on Skype or something while he's using the app? Do you have them on site? Do you go to their location to test it?
Okay.
How far do you go? Do you have video maybe?
Different scenarios. And they're all one better than the others, but it's okay. So common scenario, and let me explain a little bit about the context. You'll need the context of my current work and my team's current work. We're one of 3 design teams at OutSystems. There's one that handles the product, the low-code platform, that is what we do, okay? One that does internal applications, and then there's us. And we're kind of the ninjas that go all around the world. We have a global team of designers. And we help our customers to work with the OutSystems platform. So we help customers to build better applications with our product. What does that mean? That we're basically on site. We go there. Yeah? We travel the world. We are with the customer, trying to do that business analysis, that user research, which means we're going to take advantage of being there and doing sessions inside the company in some crazy room that will find us for us to do the tests. However, there has been scenarios in which, for instance, there are countries at war or with conflicts that OutSystems doesn't travel to, for instance, and we brought people to Lisbon, the business guys, but then we had to make tests. How are you going to make tests remotely? It's very hard, especially if the country has lousy internet connection. That also happens. But you just do it. You set up WebEx accounts to have a live stream of the person and record the expressions and how it goes all together. Or you can do it live to YouTube, use functionalities of YouTube also, and you're recording that too. So there's plenty of tools to do that. What I do prefer is to do on site in front of the person. Again, there's things that probably the camera won't capture and the real deal of being in front of a person, some hesitations, some facial expressions that you would miss. What is important in those scenarios is that you're not alone doing that, okay? Because you cannot pay attention to what the person does on screen, take notes at the same time, look at facial expressions. You cannot do it all. So if you're one guy doing UX, just bring in the business to help you, because you don't want to miss all the important stuff that you get from those sessions.